Shai, what'd you feel just in terms of the force that they were playing with early, and what you all needed to do differently in the opening minutes of this game?
Yeah, we just didn't bring it from an energy and focus standpoint. To sum it up, we just didn't have it. They obviously had it with the sense of urgency, knowing like if they go down 3-0, it's going to be pretty tough. And we just, what it felt like, just eased into the game, and they didn't, and they blitzed us pretty early, and then we were never able to get back because of it. But they just came out with a sense of urgency, and we didn't. And on top of that, when you play a really good team, it looks like that. So we got to come out with a sense of urgency, and then see where the game lays.
Shai, was there a play or a sequence that you saw and thought like, okay, things are probably starting to get out of hand?
We just turned the ball over early. They had offensive rebounds early, like a free throw block out I missed, and then I was offensive rebound. Just energy plays and little plays, like loose balls, stuff like that adds up, especially early in the game. And then they're at home, their crowd's behind it, and then they get comfortable. They're up 15 and they're open and they're making shots, and now it's 22. It's all a trickle effect, but it starts with just playing with energy and being focused, and we didn't have that tonight.
Well, along similar lines, Chet was just in here saying that Minnesota played with an edge that you guys just didn't match. But why do you think that is that you guys didn't match that edge?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The same thing kind of happened in the Memphis series. We came out in Memphis and they blitzed us. I'm not sure. I guess both situations we were up 2-0 going into Game 3, and we went on the road and they blitzed us. But we don't try to go out like that, I promise you. But whatever it is, we got to figure out if we want to reach our ultimate goals. But that's what the days in between are for, to get better.
Shai, we've seen you have the occasional off shooting night. This felt like it was really tough for you to generate looks. What was different from the first couple games in terms of you being able to get looks and to get any kind of rhythm?
I think it starts with I honestly feel like they were obviously heavy on the shell like they always are. We got some pretty good looks early in the game from 3 and they didn't fall. And then a big part of it is we were taking the ball out the net for the majority of the game. So they get back and get to set their defense, and I don't care who you are in the NBA, against a good defense, it's hard to score when they're set. And in the past 2 games, it hasn't been that. We've been able to get stops and run and play. And like I said, when you take the ball out of the net every time down, it's tough regardless. So I think that was part of the problem was our defense into our offense.
And then with Ant, you guys obviously made it tougher in the first couple games. Mm-hmm. He dominated from the jump tonight. What'd you see from him that allowed him to get in such a groove?
Yeah, he got some early ones, like turnovers, fast breaks. He got some early ones easy. And with good players, you can't let them get comfortable early. It looks like that. So, yeah, we got to be ready from the jump. That goes back to the sense of urgency and the focus on the game plan and what he's trying to do out there and what they're trying to do offensively.
Shai, for so much of this season, you guys have been, able to, bump people and, get people out of their offense and blitz people. And, to have that same thing done to you tonight, was that startling to you guys, or is it something that you guys just have to figure out how to deal with and go and watch the film, tomorrow and head into Monday?
I wouldn't say it was startling. It just it happens. You're never going to be perfect in life in a long season. Now you get punched. It's about getting back up. It's about responding, and that's what the next challenge is. We got punched in the mouth today, and next game we're either going to get back up or not, and we'll lose the game. But we have a decision to make for sure.
Kind of a follow-up on that. You guys all year, last 2 years really, have been a team that put your foot on the gas defensively to either expand a lead or get back into games. Why'd you feel like that wasn't working tonight?
They got too comfortable, and they were playing with a desperate mindset, knowing where the series was laying. And then you give good players comfort in their building with their home crowd behind them. It's in a moment like this in the Western Conference Finals, it's hard to turn the water off. So yeah, that's what that was.
Anybody else? Here we go, Mike Martin. Last one. You talked about punches, throwing the first punch. Mark said the same thing. What goes into feeling like you guys threw the first punch? Because I can't imagine it's as easy as you guys lead and that's the first punch. What makes you feel like you guys really set the tone?
Say again, sorry?
About throwing the first punch. Mark talked about it. You're talking about it. What makes you feel like your team in a game, you guys threw the first punch?
It usually starts with like game plan stuff. Like they obviously have strengths offensively and defensively, and both teams, and vice versa for us as well. And both teams are trying to impose their will on the game. And the team that imposes their will more and earlier usually throws the first punch. So it's the same thing on both sides of the ball. Like, if they're trying to do something offensively and defensively, we take them out of it, we threw the punch at that possession. And then you string them together, and there goes the first punch.
Dub, Mark and Shai and Chet were just talking about kind of the force that Minnesota played with, and that you all didn't quite have that, fastball that you normally have on that front. Where in the game are you sort of feeling that? Is it, initial positioning on possessions? Is it, hands? Is it what goes into that?
Talking about like overall.
Yeah, overall force. Yeah, like on possessions.
Usually, very boring answer, but like usually the beginning of the game, like that's where you got to be better. We got a lot of live ball turnovers, and just like that drives momentum. So we definitely not like to do that, and it just wasn't physical enough. They played more desperate than we did, and yeah, that's kind of all I have. But you can kind of tell from the beginning of the game, and then obviously it just got out of hand. They're comfortable, they're making shots, they're making the right plays, so we got to just be more physical and ready to go when the game starts.
When they are playing with that sort of edge, I know you guys rarely ever face double-digit deficits, let alone 15, 20, 30. Like, how hard is it in the middle of a game, especially of that nature, to sort of match that edge?
It's tough. Like I said, when a team is like that, obviously they're a good team, we know that, but when you just give them that much freedom, it's, I don't want to say impossible to slow down, but it's very hard. And it's not like the game was close, you know what I mean? Like, we weren't shooting well either, so when you add that into not playing hard, like not like matching how they're playing energy-wise, it's very hard to slow a good team like that, especially when they're comfortable.
And Chet was in here just mentioning certain plays, certain sequences where Minnesota's just almost like physically willing you guys out of your stuff and forcing you to do different things. When he says that, like, what do you think of? I mean, I know, like, you and Randall kind of, trying to out-physical each other. Like, what are some of the things you're thinking of when he says that?
Just, I don't know. It's nothing that we haven't really seen. Just, like, same stuff we do, like blowing up ball screens. I think everybody that watches, like, even if you've never watched basketball, like, you can probably see, like, the physicality, like the Julius Randle play you're talking about with me and him, like, on the block. Like, everybody sees those plays. I think a lot of it is just, like, I don't want to say physical. It's more like energy. It's like them being in the right spot early, like them rotating and making the extra effort. Like, stuff like that in my head is where the game got lost for us and like what they were doing. So I wouldn't say it was like overly physical. It was just like them flying around and having confidence and like, just playing desperate like that. That's what it felt like.
You lost 3 games to Denver last series, but you didn't have to deal with this kind of loss. This loss was pretty atypical of what you guys have had to deal with in the postseason. Even with Game 3 in Memphis, that was only a half. This was 48 minutes. How do you respond to that? And, how do you, get to the root of the real issue?
You just kind of got to scrap it. We'll look back and obviously we'll have a good game plan in place. But a lot of it, too, is just like you got to kind of come out ready to play and can't be surprised by, like, how, like, obviously they're down in the series, so you can't be too shocked at, like, how they come out. And I think that had a little bit to do with it. But to further answer your question, I mean, it's just a loss, like, regardless of how many points, and like we've been on the other end of that, and it's just now it's 2-1. Like that's how we have to think about it. I mean, in college I've lost by 60, so it can always be worse.
Anybody else? We'll go Joel and go Sway.
Doug, you guys have scored at least through the first 2 games in the paint almost at will. Why do you think that sort of changed today?
Our defense was not very good, so it's hard to get any flow of offense when you're taking the ball at every play.
Jalen, the first 2 games of the series seemed to really be in your bag offensively. Coming into this arena, obviously, different environment. What did you see, outside of the way they started, what did you see in the sense of how they defended you that disrupted your offensive flow tonight?
Out of my flow, I played like 10 minutes today, so not too much of anything. Just like I said, just not being able to get stops. It's definitely harder to like go down and score and find cracks when you're playing against a set defense the whole time. And that's for both ends of the team. Like you got to get stops in order to win games, in order to have some type of flow. And they were getting stops. They had flow on offense, and we weren't getting stops. No flow. That's kind of how the game works. But yeah, I still thought my process was good throughout the entire game. Just obviously I didn't like play normal minutes, normal game. You try not to force everything either down that big. When you're trying to chop a lead down, you can't try and make all these home run plays. You kind of got to stack over and over again, and wasn't able to do that. But that's kind of the game.
This will be the last one, Daniel.
Everybody that's come in here has talked about you guys' defense, and for the last 2 years, you guys have used your defense to either get back in games or expand leads. Tonight wasn't the case. Why do you feel that is?
Just didn't have it. I wish I could get into like specifics. I gotta like watch the game. I don't really like speaking on like X's and O's and stuff that we could have did to get better as far as like the game, especially when it happens, because there's so many like emotions that go into the game, and I could be wrong, and you never want to like blow it up too much. But I think just like playing with more of an edge and not be, like I said, not being shocked like how they're gonna play, especially down in the series, and just like obviously they had some success with that tonight, so they're gonna come out like that again, and just not being shocked by that, I think will be like a really good start for us, and we can kind of go from there.
Chet, did you feel like the energy or the execution was kind of the difference maker in that opening first quarter, and just the difference in this game?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is they came out and played with more force than we did. Execution, you couldn't even get execution into the game because they just took us out of our stuff with force. So we gotta equal that force and be better.
Chet, when you say they forced you out of your stuff, like what are some of the small in-game battles you're tracking? Some of the ways they're doing that you want to avoid?
I mean, it's not complicated. They just wherever they wanted to go, they got there. They didn't let us be in their way or anything. They did what they wanted to do, and we didn't stop them. So. Yeah.
And so before it, ballooned to 35 and then 40, like obviously in the Memphis series, you guys came back from 31. Just what was sort of different about this game?
I mean, I'd say they're a really good team. They're in the Western Conference Finals for a reason. They played with more of an edge tonight than we did, and it showed. I'd say that's the difference. It's not like an X's and O's thing or anything complicated. It's pretty simple.
First couple games, you guys made it really tough on Ant to get any kind of a rhythm going. Why do you think he was able to really take control of this one from the opening tip?
I'd just say you got to give him credit as a good player. He's gonna watch the film make adjustments and see where the cracks are for him to insert himself in the game. We made it tough on him the first 2 games, and credit to him and their team and their coaching staff for figuring out ways to make it different for Game 3. It's not anything unexpected. We didn't expect them to just kind of hand us the game or anything. And, we have to do the exact same thing they did. We have to go back and watch and see why what they did worked, and then, figure out how to counter that.
Chet, you said they played with more force, more of an edge. I mean, why do you think that you guys weren't able to match that?
I wouldn't say that we weren't able to. We didn't. So.
Is that hard to, get going mid-game? I mean, we've seen you guys do it before, have big comebacks. Why was tonight maybe different?
First of all, I'd say we've done it before, but, we have to be better from the jump, and I'm always going to look at myself. I'm out there at the beginning of the game, so it starts with me at the end of the day, and, I have to be better from the jump. Once you put yourself in those positions, especially playing against really good teams, you don't want to bank on that. We've seen it happen before with us and other teams, but at the end of the day, it's about giving yourself the best chance throughout the whole game, and putting yourself in a big deficit like that isn't what you want to do. So we have to be better.
Games like this are such an anomaly for you guys. Are you after a game like this, are you more of a throw it away, forget about it, or are you somebody that wants to get into the film and see all the things that you guys can improve on?
I'm going to get into it and see where I can be better. Our whole team is, the coaching staff's going to, everybody's going to look and see where they can be better. Because we have a group of guys that really care. So, at this point of the season and after a game like that, nobody's thinking just throw it away or scrap it. There's lessons in there where we can all be better, myself, everybody included, and we're going to do our best to take those lessons and learn from them.
Mark, the start of this game, did you feel like it was more energy on their part versus your part, or an execution thing, or maybe a combination of the two that just you all didn't get off to the start that you wanted to?
Yeah, certainly a combination. Credit them, first of all. They were ready to play, and they did everything better than us from the jump tonight. So dug ourselves a hole. Thought we tried to drum it up a couple different times, but they did a good job of holding us off as well. So we can learn from it. Obviously not our best punch, but again, tip our hat to them for going and getting the game the way they did.
Mark, you guys have scored almost at will, it feels like, in the paint this series. Why do you think that changed tonight?
I'm not sure. We'll go back and look at it. It was a combination of things. I thought their defensive pressure and physicality definitely stood out early, and they were definitely throwing the first punch in the game. That had a lot to do with it. Schematically, they were a little different tonight, but not a ton. I just thought they were way more physical than we were forceful on that end of the floor, and they were way more forceful than we were physical on the other end of the floor, and that's a tough combination.
So obviously in the Memphis series, you go down.
Biggest deficit, I got that.
Right. So I guess why do you feel like you couldn't bite into this lead today the way you did in that game?
A combination of how they played and how we played. I would never discredit the effort that they put forth. They went and got the game tonight. They were way better than us, obviously, in every facet. Can't isolate it to one thing. They just holistically were much better than we were. And like I said, I thought we tried to drum up some energy at different points in the game, but they obviously were able to hold us off because they really ran through the 48 minutes tonight.
Did you feel any different about the looks they got tonight?
The looks?
Yeah.
I think we generate a lot more of a rhythm in the other games than we did tonight, and I thought that impacted our rhythm stepping into those shots. And so some of that, again, was them. I thought they did a great job offensively and defensively, especially from the jump. And some of that's us, and we need to, obviously address the stuff we can control and be a much better team in Game 4 if we want to give ourselves a better chance than we had tonight.
Mark, Were there some signs early in this one that were sort of concerning as far as effort or just intensity matching their physicality, anything like that?
I mean, obviously they threw the first punch, but we've been so good all season at being able to take a punch and bounce back, take a punch and turn the game, amp up our whatever we need. And that wasn't the case as much tonight, but it's not like early, I was overly concerned. It's a 48-minute game, and we've been a team that's typically kept coming. But they just, give them credit. They kept their foot on the gas tonight, and we were just never able to give ourselves any traction in the game.
I think I know the answer to this one, but confident you guys can just put this one behind you.
It's been, who we are generally. We know the ebbs and flows of a playoff series. We've been on the other end of games like this, and they haven't been predictive of the next game either. So we do have to look at it and address the things that went awry for us tonight. But at the same time, it'll be a new game. It'll be 0-0 when Game 4 starts.
Mark, some of the things that you guys typically do to teams with pressure, bumping people off of cuts, getting over screens, not allowing to be screened. Minnesota displays some of those same traits tonight. Were you guys bothered by that a little bit, or how do you kind of counter that a little bit going forward as we go into Game 4?
Yeah, they're a good team. That's played very well for a long time now, and they have a lot of pride. And they probably felt like they left something on the table in terms of how they played in the first two games. And to their credit, they addressed that, and they were ready to go tonight. So like I said, it's a series. Every game's different. Every series is different. You have to grow through the series, and you got to grow through things you do well, and you got to grow through the adversities as well. And we've got experience doing that, and we have to apply that right now.
Jalen Williams seemed to really unlock his offense these first two games in the series. What did you see differently in this game tonight?
I mean, it's not just him. I think generally they were just much more physical, much sharper, executed better, more forceful on offense. I mean, for the score to be what it was, they needed to be really good in a lot of areas and outplay us in a lot of areas, and that's what they did. So, again, give them credit. We lose a game like that. It's not just one team. They really took it to us, and we're ready to play. We got to learn a lesson from it. They're going to come out and try to replicate that in Game 4.
Why do you think Ant was able to seize control of the game the way he did, basically from the opening tip?
Yeah, we just weren't able to bottle him up the way that we have the first couple games. Credit them for freeing him up. Credit him for the energy and the force that he played with. He was really on it early. And again, their force on that end of the floor just was better than our physicality, pressure, things that we typically do well. So we'll look at it. We'll, separate out what was, just pure physicality and energy and what was execution. We'll address it and be a better team Game 4. That's what we have to do.
Mark, you mentioned some of the schematic things. How did it sort of impact you guys offensively with them sort of picking up Shai at a lower point?
Say that one more time.
How they were picking up Shai just lower. They weren't picking up as high.
Yeah, I thought they definitely wound that back a little bit, which is an adjustment that other teams have made. I mean, we're used to him getting picked up high, getting picked up low. We have different attacks for that. They did a good job tonight, overall with their execution of the plan, the physicality in the scoring area, creating a crowd. Certainly things we could have done better to try to loosen that up, but they were the better team on both ends tonight.
Went away from the double big lineup in the second half. Was that just trying to throw a different look at them?
Yeah, just trying to get, a little more fluidity on the floor and loosen them up. It was effective in the first couple minutes. We made a nice run. We got it to 22, which for where we were was way more manageable than we had been in a while in that game. But, just obviously I threw different guys out there tonight. I'm a big believer when the game's going like that, you just give a lot of guys opportunity to give you a spark, and that's what I was trying to do.
It's a similar thing with AJ. Went with him a little early-ish. Did you like what you saw from him tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to evaluate him. He hasn't played a ton in these playoffs. He obviously was injured for a long time, but he established a good little track record, early in his rookie season. He has utility. There's things he brings to the table. I thought maybe his ball handling could have helped us in that part of the game, but at the same time, it's would be unfair to evaluate him in a 3-minute stretch.
Mark, this is a little silly. It feels arbitrary, but fans like to say that a home team is bound to shoot better in their own gym. Like, I just wonder, is that something you're mindful of? Is that something you have to coach against?
I think generally, players, are going to play more comfortable at home, in terms of all the stuff that puts the wind at your back with energy and effort, confidence, and force. And we knew with them coming home down 0-2 that they were going to bring those things tonight, and they did. And while I thought we were prepared to play and mentally ready, they definitely landed their punches, and we had a really hard time getting into the game. But I don't know how much that's, them at home, but they certainly played better than we did tonight.